Good morning, colleagues. Good morning. I'm Siyabonga Mapumulo, the Communications Manager in Mhlathuze Water. It's just to reassure colleagues that we should about start in the next 5 minutes or so. So we're just waiting for everyone to settle down and for the colleagues outside to just finish their registrations. We are very much aware of the deadline pressures that our media colleagues have, and I know a couple of colleagues have also signaled that they'd like to do crossovers. So in the next 5 minutes or so, we should start. Thank you.
I'm going to start. For the big place for you. Yeah. How's the powering? Not powering. I think I'll be quick spotting slides. Spotting slides. So. No, that's not. I'm the first one, yes. I think that's a bit fine. That's a bit fine.
Greetings once again, colleagues. I think we can now start with our formal program. If we can all settle down, I won't venture to reintroduce myself again, as I've already done that, and we are very time conscious because of the deadlines that we all have. Let me start by thanking you all for honoring our invitation to this briefing today and to officially welcome you on behalf of the Chief Executive of Mhlathuze Water, Mr. Mhlathuze, as well as the board chairperson, Ms. Thabi Shange, and indeed the entire board of Mhlathuze Water. I will start by introducing our executive team, who besides the chief executive, Mr. Mhlathuze, as I've already mentioned, are also here. They are settled at the first table right in front of us. So as I do, if I can just request our GMs to just raise a hand for the media colleagues to see them. I will start with Mr. Patrick Maisiri, who is our General Manager for Technical Services, as well as the Acting General Manager for Operations. And then we have Utate Swaswantloro, who is the GM for Scientific Services. And we have Mr. Mandla Mieni, who is our General Manager for Corporate Services. Thank you, colleagues. I also have Mr. Thokozani Hlongwane, who is our Finance Manager, representing our Chief Financial Officer, who couldn't be with us, owing to other work pressures that she had to take care of. Colleagues, can I then invite onto the stage Mr. Thokozani Hlongwane, who will just give us a brief overview from a financial perspective of why it is that we are here. But of course, we are here to glean the operations of Mhlathuze Water for the year that was, being the 2019-2020 financial period, and also to get an organizational overview of what it is exactly that has come to pass and has brought us this far. Mr. Hlongwane, if you can please come to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take you through the financial performance of Mhlathuze Water for the year under review. On my first slide, it's volumes that were sold in the 2018-2019 financial year. 2019-2020 financial year. You can see we have sold about 58,000 kiloliters. That is dense. That's dense water and beyond water. And then the next slide is on the condensed financial statement. You can see on account our current assets have increased from 444 million to 521. Our total asset has increased from 1.4 billion to 1.5 billion. And then our net asset liabilities, it increased from 148 to 1.59 billion. Okay, on the revenue side, from 30 June 2019, we have made 712 million revenue. But if you compare to the 30 June 2020, it's decreased slightly from 712 to 763. But if you look at our cost of sales, the cost of sales has decreased from 309 to 240, which resulted in a gross profit of 423 comparing to 403 that we incurred the previous year. Although it was a difficult year, our net surplus was 103 million. Taking the effect of COVID, we managed, although our revenue was down, we managed to increase our revenue from 103 to, we managed to increase our net surplus from 103 to 136 million. Okay, this is an overview of our financial performances over the 5-year period. Our gross profit in 2015 was 73%. In 2020, it is now 64%. And then on our debtors collection days, meaning the time that we spend to collect our fees from our debtors. In 2015, it was 50 days, but we managed to, through our stringent debt collection controls, we managed to drop it to 38 days. And then our staff remuneration, as a percentage of our total expenditure, in 2015 it was 23%. Our target has been constant to be, we always strive to manage our staff to be 30% of our total expenditure. And over the past 5 year, over the past 5 year period, we managed to stick within the target. Our net profit margin, in 2015, it was 21%. It increased from 21% to 23%. Our current ratio, the ratio that measures the ability for us to pay to settle our creditors within 30 days. In 2015, it was R1.88, and then we managed to increase that from R1.88 over the 5 year period to R3.12. Debt equity ratio, in 2015 it was 45 cents. We managed to decrease that to 0.9, meaning our debt, our loans has decreased significantly. And the return on assets, in 2015 it was 9%. We managed to increase that from 9% to 10.4% in 2020. Asset turnover ratio is 0.51, and then it managed to drop to 0.14 in the 2020 financial year. Interest turnover ratio, it was 8 times in 2015, and then in 2020 it is 18.56. This is the result of the significant drop in our long-term borrowings. Okay, the next slide, it deals with our audit outcome, the journey to our audit outcome. In 2016-17, we had a qualified audit opinion. Then in 2017-18, we have unqualified audit opinion with material findings. Okay, in 2016-17, we had qualified audit opinion. Also in 2017-18, we also had a qualified audit opinion. And then there was a significant improvement from 2017 to 2018-19, where we had unqualified audit opinion with material findings. And then in 2020, we have unqualified audit opinion without material findings. Okay, the next slide is the journey. I'm continuing with the journey and unpacking what we were qualified on. In 2016-17, audit report was qualified on property, plant, and equipment and irregular expenditure. And then in the year 17-18, audit report was qualified on account receivables. And then in 2018-19, audit report was unqualified with material adjustment. And then in 2019-20, audit report was clean audit. There were no material misstatements. Okay, what was the contributors to the improvement from qualified audit opinion 16-17 to the clean audit in 19-20? Every time Auditor General is auditing us, we go back to the drawing board, look at their findings, and try to come with an action plan to make sure that these findings are no longer recurring. So for the 16-17, we have to reconstruct the fixed asset register. We have to reconstruct the irregular expenditure. We have to strengthen internal controls and account receivables, such as reconciliation and detailed review by management. We have to go through the whole population on commitment to determine what is capital commitment, what is operational commitment. And then we also have to change the accounting practices on disclosure relating to operational commitment. And then we also have to make sure that our staff, we employ skilled staff and qualified personnel in finance who have appropriate qualifications, such as chartered accountants, employment of personal experience in working in the Office of Auditor General. We also have internal audit units that also contribute in this journey of us receiving a clean audit. Every time we design the plan, they come back and then they make sure that they keep us honest by checking whatever we wrote on the plan, we also deliver on it. We are, by the legislation, we are required to prepare AFS yearly, but to make sure that we improve on our financial statement, we've been preparing financial statement on a monthly basis and treating each and every month as a year end. And then the report on the audit on AGSA evaluated the usefulness and reliability of the reported performance information in accordance with the criteria developed from the performance management and reporting framework. There is no opinion issued, as AGSA only perform procedures to identify findings but gather evidence to express assurance. No material findings were identified in the performance indicators. Reports on compliance with legislation. AGSA performed procedure to identify findings but not to gather evidence to express assurance to identify findings, but to gather evidence to express assurance. No material findings were identified in the procedure performed in compliance with the audit. The chairperson and the CE will also unpack the journey on how did we come to achieve the clean audit. I thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hlongwane. It's indeed been a journey. Coincidentally, Mhlathuze Water celebrates 40 years of its founding this year. And I think it's quite something that in the 40 years that we've been around, but in the main, the 2 years that the new board has been installed at Mhlathuze Water, and of course the installation of the new chief executive in 2019, we are now firmly on a road to a turnaround. It says that indeed there is stability within the organization. Can I invite the chief executive, Mr. Mhlathuze, to expand on what it is that Mr. Hlongwane said? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director Mashimane, to my colleagues, the members of the media present here. I also want to acknowledge the chairperson of the board, Ms. Tabi Shange, and acknowledge the support we're receiving from the leadership in the province as the entity that accounts to government. I acknowledge your presence here in Diema. I also acknowledge the presence of all my EXCO colleagues in this session. I greet you all this morning, colleagues. Just as the program director has indicated, I will expand without wasting much of your time on the things that we've been doing as an organization to get to the state where we are. I know that we've been hearing quite a lot about this entity, Mhlathuze, for good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons. Now I want once and for all today to set the record straight so that you know what you are buying in Mhlathuze Water. Once and for all, we've got to do this today. The institution on its own, you know, it's a public entity. Like all other public entities, would have to go through some development phases, as you would call it, which you would know happens everywhere else. We also have undergone that as an institution, but I want to thank the colleagues in the institution for having stomached the transition period. I was sent to Mhlathuze Water in June 2016, on the 8th of June 2016, amidst everything else that you know about Mhlathuze Water. As an accounting officer at the time, acting interim chief executive, we then started working on what we call the turnaround plan for the organization. Like in all plans, if you were to implement them, it doesn't take a day to realize the outcomes of the plan. Like a journey of 1,000 miles, it begins with the first step that you take. In that process, the board was dissolved. In 2016, I saw myself remaining as the chief executive and an accounting authority of the organization, meaning the CE and the board performing those functions simultaneously, whilst the ministry was facilitating the process of installing the new board. In 2018, on the 5th of December, the new board was put in place. Together with the new board, we strengthened the process of a turnaround plan for the organization in discharging on its functions and services, as it were. Now, let me take a minute to expand on these functions and services, because some of you may just simply assume that we are the same as all other water boards that you see in the country. We are not. Mhlathuze Water is very peculiar and it's different as a water board. We're not only responsible for the function of discharging bulk water to our clients, we're also responsible for discharging affluent discharge for industry that is producing and is highly responsible for economic activities in the northern areas of KwaZulu-Natal and Richards Bay in that ITZ space. Now, you would know there are factories there like Fosco, Mondi, Tronox, to name but the few. In their business activities, there is an affluent that they've got to discharge so that it's not harmful to the society as part of the byproduct of the work that they do. We've got the pipeline in the sea that we take their affluent from their plants. We deal with that affluent so that it's not harmful to the environment through our processing plant next to the sea, and we discharge that affluent into the sea in terms of our permit and our permit license conditions into the sea. It's a very unique responsibility that we have as a water board, and it generates almost 45% of our revenue as an institution. It's something that I'm sure you didn't even know about it as the members of the media. So it's important to put the context to what that organization is doing far north, and certainly the existence of the organization as it stands is driven by the profit that we get from the industry, as it were. The bulk of our clients is industry. Only a portion, about 20% of our clients, are the municipalities as it stands. So we generate, in the main, our revenue from the industry. That is why we're alive even today. As I was saying, in our turnaround plan with the new board, we had to come up with the plan on how do we turn around some of the issues that Mr. Ngwane was raising, which were raised by AG in the 2 consecutive years when qualification was sponsored on the affairs of the organization. One of those issues were on issues around governance, lack of internal control, as it were. The 2016-17 audit discovered irregular expenditure of almost 300 million. That irregular expenditure, in terms of PFMA, had to be dealt with from the accountability point of view. Investigation, determining the causes of irregular expenditure, dealing with issues of consequence management, recovery in some cases where you could recover, and in cases where you needed to report some of those matters to authorities, we had to deal with some of those matters. In cases where to refer those to courts for whatever reasons, we had to do that, and also request Treasury where there was no loss that was detected post the investigation, meaning the amount spent, we derived benefit out of the amount spent, even though the supply chain management processes were not duly followed, but we may have derived benefit out of the amounts that were spent in some of those cases. So we had to unbundle the irregular expenditure amounts into those categories where we derived benefit, where we did not derive benefit, where there was glaring fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and deal with those from those categories. So part of the journey was to deal with some of those mishaps in the institution, which we have successfully done, and in our financials we're reporting on how we are proceeding in terms of reducing the irregular expenditure amount that is sitting in our balance sheet from an accountability point of view. As it were, the new board, when they came on board on the 5th of December, it came and we had agreed that one of the things that we've got to do is to strengthen our internal controls as an organization. You cannot have clean audits when your internal controls are questionable, because you need to be able to detect that things are going haywire. You need to be able to predict that there is something that must be done from an intervention point of view, from an accountability point of view, as it were. And you need to be able to put systems in place, procedures and policies that would assist you to manage better as an organization, which is what we've done with the new board. And we've also ensured that we bring on board capable, qualified teams that are able to drive each of the business units in a much more appropriate, in a much more business-driven sense, in order to turn around issues in the organization. But what is important, which one had to instill in the institution, was the issue of consequence management. If you do what is not right, you've got to know that what you are doing as something wrong may land you at home, because we don't have any appetite for corruption. We don't have any appetite and tolerance for people who do wrong things in the government institutions. We've got to change the face of how SOEs are perceived and known out there. That SOEs are supposed to be helping government to discharge on services. They are not a room for people to infest and do corruption, and they are known as such. Those are institutions and arms of government to deliver services to the people. And that's what we want to display as Mhlathuze Water. The corner has been turned. That's where we're going. And all SOEs are on the right trajectory. So let's not judge them from the past. Let's judge them on the corners that they are turning, because they are professionals that are there. We have integrity to protect, some of us as professionals. So when we sit in those chairs as executives, as CEOs, a lot is riding on our chairs as accounting officers. So when we've turned the institutions, we want to turn them for the better. And the litmus test is on external audit that is performed by AG on the state of affairs in terms of your financials, in terms of internal controls, in terms of your exposure on SCM, in terms of how well do you even deal with issues of accountability as an accounting officer, as the board, which is what has been displayed in the audit that has been performed for the year it was. We want to uphold this standard as the board has given the marching orders to me as the CE, together with my executive, that we've got to uphold what has been achieved to date moving forward. I am very happy that we have set a very high standard on performance in Mhlathuze Water, and the tolerance levels are very low in terms of mischievousness. The standard is very high on what we would want to do on performance. We would want to work on what we've achieved to date and move on and move forward on other plans that we have on expanding on water provision in the northern KwaZulu-Natal areas. You know, we had to deal with issues of institutional nature as Mhlathuze Water before we get into the bigger issues of water provision in the northern KwaZulu-Natal areas. You know, our biggest problem are not the institutional issues of Mhlathuze. The issues are around water provision in the rest of Zululand, water provision in Umkhanyakude, coverage of water in the King Cetshwayo district municipality as the whole. We've got to provide total sum solutions for all the residents to have water, because we are an institution of government under the Department of Water and Sanitation. So solutions are at hand to be able to deliver and discharge on that responsibility. But you can only trust an institution with good reputation, with good financial standing, with good technical capability to be able to discharge on those services. The corner has been turned. Mhlathuze Water is there to provide that service. We are now ready to discharge on our services and our functions, because we believe we can only talk about those when there's something to display, instead of doing a PR that cannot be tested and there's nothing to show on what we have achieved. That is my short story to you colleagues this morning, that we have now arrived. We are here. We are a force that is going to be there. There is no small about Mhlathuze Water. We are capable of doing what needs to be done. Engineering is in Mhlathuze Water. Science laboratories are in Mhlathuze Water to deal with our function and put us to the test. Let's see if we cannot deliver. Thank you very much. That's my story this morning.
Thank you very much, CE. I think it's a good story to tell, if I may say so myself, and hoping that our media colleagues will relay it as told. Colleagues, again, without wasting time, allow me to now welcome onto the podium the chairperson of the board of Mhlathuze Water to actually give us her own few words from a governance perspective and oversight on the job of the chief executive as well as his executive team. Ms. Tabishangi, please. Thank you.
May I acknowledge Umhlonishwa Mabuyakhulu, and may I acknowledge all the people from the media. I'm just sorry, I took the other way thinking that I was going to be not caught in the traffic, but it didn't happen that way, and it was raining. So I was rushing and there were no traffic cops along the way, so at least I didn't get any ticket. May I greet you all? And I don't think, fortunately, Mashimane, I was hearing everything that was being said here. So I know what the officials were actually saying. I found that, of course, the CEO was here. All I can say is that we're just very happy that as Mhlathuze Water, we've moved upwards positively in terms of the institution being governed well. And would like never to turn the curve downwards, because that would not be the right thing to do. But I think I want to acknowledge the officials first. Any institution that does not have competent, committed, and passionate officials will never run well. And I can say that with the officials of Mhlathuze Water, I found those three: committed, competent, and passionate about their work. And this is what has brought us here. And I think we're going to go on like that. You find that unless those three exist, you will never find any institution of government actually performing well. But also what I want to add is that apart from delivering on our mandate, which I think the CEO has mentioned, and of course the officials that were there, and doing things right, what we want to do next is that we want footprint on the areas where we function, particularly around our secondary mandate, which is community development. We are engaged in those activities. The institution as such, the main mandate is to make sure that we can provide bulk water and all other related. But the secondary mandate is to make sure that we can actually be involved in community development. Something that has legacy, not simply little things like, giving some little donations here, and we want programs and projects that have got footprint, so that long term, in the long haul, in fact, people can actually say, yes, we have a service that directly come to the community like that. We don't want them, even if we don't put our logos all over, we want to know that people will say, we have got what we required as far as the first generation of human rights, which is part of his water and his life. Those form part of the first generations of human rights. So we're going to be focusing into that so that in between we meet our primary mandate and we meet our secondary mandate. And of course, we don't want only to, I think the CE and his team have mentioned the fact that I think we're not only providing bulk water. In Richards Bay, of course, directly, the industries there are dependent on us. And we also, of course, dispose of their effluent water. But apart from that, we move beyond what you call north of Utugela, which is from Machuba, Umzenyati, Zululand, Kanyagute, King Cetshwayo. We want to move beyond the borders. Because we've been invited actually to go there. Part of the municipalities, district municipalities that are our neighbors, like Khalsibande, we want to go there. And I think as the CE has mentioned also, we are going to be also getting into contract with Swaziland from the Jozini Dam. Those are some of the things which I think they've mentioned. So we want to make sure we can make the areas where we are grow, be solid, be sustainable, so that at no stage should they say Mhlathuze Water has not provided us with that. The act of God, we're looking into that as well, that if we don't have rains, fortunately we have rains, hopefully our dams are going to be full. I think that has been mentioned there. We hope that if there's shortage of water, we're scouting around to find out how we can actually source water from the underground lakes. We know we've got underground water. And those are the type of studies that are being done now. And we hope we're going to do that, so that at no stage should we be short of what is the basic right which forms the human beings. What we are is 80% as human beings. And once you don't have that 80% in your blood, you definitely dry up and we are no longer. So thank you very much for being here. I don't want to delay you. And I want to thank my officials there that continue with your commitment, passion. I'm a passionate person. Anything that I do it with a passion. And what frustrates me is if I find people that I work with doing their work without any passion. But continue with your passion, your commitment. Of course, you are competent because you are qualified to do the work that you are doing. So that is why we've reached where we are. Thank you very much, without wasting more time.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, can I ask that you not vacate the podium, but in fact are also joined by the Chief Executive on the chairs to my left. We will now move to the question and answer sessions from the media colleagues. And I may also reassure you that, colleagues, the presentations that have been made, as well as the statements from the Chairperson and the Chief Executive, respectively, will be made available after this briefing. I now open the podium to questions. Please identify yourself as you ask the question, and if you can just indicate the organization that you come from. Thank you. Okay, I will take questions in batches of 3. I see 2 hands, one in the front. I note you, Alex. I note you, Liz, at the back there. And we also have 4 questions. Okay, we'll take all 4. Please just identify yourself and pose the question. Thank you.
Thanks, Mashuman. Alex Ntiane from Gagas. Thank you for the presentation. Just 2 questions. Maybe the first one is not necessarily a question, it's a statement. When you presented to the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, you did mention that you had prudent financial plannings for the current fiscal, such that you recorded a surplus of approximately 107 million rand, if I'm not mistaken. And part of that, you attributed it to the milestones that the CE presented, dealing with corruption, ensuring that you service your footprint very well. However, which leads to congratulations. It leads me to my question then. Much as you have recorded success and coming from the AG, which is an independent body, we are also aware that during this financial year, there were challenges, at least in one of the two districts that you service. That tumultuous relationship or episode might then come into the fore as we build up to next year's local government elections. Can you take us into your confidence that such issues have been resolved, meaning what you just presented here might not see that resurfacing as an impediment to whatever plans that you have? It played itself out in the media, particularly Zululand, if I may be specific. And then there was a lot again on social media about what people perceived to be issues of not services being rendered accordingly with the Umkhanyakude district. So if you could please clarify on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Kina?
Thanks, Mashuman. Bongan Kina from Kakas FM. Just my questions are related to areas of operations, especially to the CEO. There has been challenges of water supply reported, especially in the area of Ngwavu, where the fund was, especially in Ward 14, and that called for the intervention of Deputy or MP Sfiso Buthelezi, who approached the minister regarding the challenge. How far is the challenge? Is your entity has gone? How far has it gone in attending to the challenge? Second question is also with the regards to the supplying of water at the Ingome prison in Vryheid. We got a call from few prisoners complaining that for a few days now, in fact weeks, they haven't been receiving water supply, and they've been having water guns coming to deliver water to the institution, and they complain that that isn't enough for them to utilize in terms of water utilization. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, if you can just go to Liz at the back. Yeah.
Good morning, it's Liz Commons from the Mercury. Thank you for your presentation. I just have a couple of questions. The first one is, can you give us an indication of how much of the almost 300 million was recovered by the Water Board? You know, how many arrests were made, etc. Just more detail regarding the specifics there, whether staff were fired, etc. The other questions that I have are, please tell us a bit more about the Swaziland contracts, the value and how much water were you looking to supply, and thirdly, your exploration of underground water resources. If you can tell us a bit more about that, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take you, sir. Give me your question. I've noted you at the back.
All right, my name is Tlantla Mabaso from Power FM News. So,
sorry, Ntlantla, can you just lower your mask, please? Yeah, your sound is distorted.
okay,
Yeah.
my name is Tlantla Mabaso from Power FM News. So I want to know whether you are aware that Mhlathuze's name has come under the state capture several times now, with the then chairperson Ututumieni at the time, allegedly having siphoned an amount of over 2 million rands from Mhlathuze and laundered into various accounts. I want to know, what does the new executive and chairperson make of those allegations? Thank you.
Hi, thanks. My name is Fred Felton from Umhlanga Live. I'd just like to know, has eThekwini municipality ever helped you out with your water, and what have you learned from eThekwini municipality and how they deal with water? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take the answers to those 4 questions for now, and we'll do the next round. Yeah.
All right, let's deal with the questions. I will deal with the last and go up with them. if you don't mind. Shall we do that? I'm not sure with my colleague. I didn't get the name, but I know you are from Mhlanga Live. I didn't quite get the name. My apologies for that. I am not sure because it did not expand on what we needed to learn from eThekwini. I'm not sure if there's anything to learn from eThekwini because it did not expand on what I needed to learn or what we needed to learn from eThekwini. So if you wanted to say, what have we learned in eThekwini as far as bulk provision, then I'll tell you that they're not responsible for bulk. Umgeni is. If you were to learn this, then I would be more specific about what to learn.
Sorry, let me qualify that then.
Please do.
So, for example, like how they use WhatsApp buttons. So, if people complain via WhatsApp, is that something that you would be using,
Okay.
and then also bulk provision?
Okay, good. Now the question is more closer to home. The program director will address that's what I'm paying him for. So he will go home with how he deals with issues of stakeholder management, because that falls clearly under his ambit. So Mashimane, I will want you to earn your salary today. Answer that question. Now, the issue from Lizette, did I get the name right? Liz. Let's deal with the issue of underground water exploration. We all know that there are aquifers underground. The question is, if we are experiencing a drought, how much water can we extract without disrupting the environment? Because you've got to allow underground to recharge on its own, like you've got rains now. Water must be able, through filtration system, to recharge underground and not cause much of disruption in the environment. But in some cases, you find that the only alternative and the solutions that you must explore is to drill boreholes as the primary source for water distribution, because there's just no other option that you have. But the geohydrologists have got to tell you how much of volumes do you have on the ground. As we extract that water that exists underground, the first thing we have to do before we even start talking distribution is to test if that water is suitable for human consumption, because it could be available, and we've proven in some cases where we've drilled some boreholes that that water is not suitable for human consumption. We then have got to put some rudimentary level of water purification in terms of package plants, so that that water can be fit for purpose as intended. So what we are doing as part of our reconciliation studies is to look at the issue of water provision in the northern KZN. Maybe let me spend a bit of time on this one so that you can get the context of where this underground water study is coming from, because it's not just an activity on its own. It's part of the water reconciliation study that we are doing. We are very lucky as we're seated here in eThekwini and the surrounding areas that water is provided here by our sister water board, and they are using the dams on a systems approach. So if one dam gets low, they're able to open another dam to feed into that dam. And the water supply disruption in the southern areas of KZN becomes highly minimal, particularly around eThekwini and the surrounding areas. That is not the privilege that the people in the northern KZN have. If they have one dam in Goedetro and that dam is low and it dries up, it's checkmate. If Jozini Dam can get to 0 levels, it's checkmate. So there is no other dam that feeds into Jozini Dam as a system to augment and provide reliable water as a resource to provide to communities. So part of the reconciliation studies that we are doing as an institution is to look at how do we guarantee water availability in our area of supply on a sustained basis. Because it's very clear that when there is drought, the hardest hit areas are the northern KZN areas. You may have published yourselves as the media that the drought that was felt in 2016, 17, even up to 2018, and was persisting, the effects of that drought was persisting. Other scholars were saying we were getting out of drought and they wanted the restrictions to be lifted. But we were saying as Mhlathuze Water, no, but you can't do that because our dams are still roving around the 50s. Therefore, you can't lift the water restrictions. You can't say to farmers they can harvest that water as they please. Please stick to those restrictions because if you continue harvesting that water without limitation, then we're posing a challenge to business activities, to communities not having water on a sustained basis. So the restrictions in the northern KZN areas are still in force from a drought point of view. But this side, those restrictions do not exist because your dams are full. It's a fact. Now, we've got to be thinking about different methods of guaranteeing water as a resource from an availability point of view, and those must be mixed use methods. Storages, dams, we've got to talk about underground water, we've got to talk about desalination plants, because if sometimes there is nothing else that we need to do, we've got to start those engines and we've got to pump that water from the sea as a measure of guaranteeing water availability to our communities. We've got no choice in the north because things are not as easy as people think they are. If you look at Zululand, once that Mfolozi River dries up, there is nothing else that they're considering except even in the Mhlathuze scheme. That Mhlathuze scheme is going to get its water from Jozini Dam. That's how far they're drawing water from, because there is no alternative elsewhere. And that's not the case here. Here in the south, the planning is so advanced that Mkomazi Dam is coming up, the Dlamini Dam is coming up. It's not the same language that we're discussing up north, and that's why we now are taking this upon ourselves as Mhlathuze Water to say, planning on a long term for the northern areas is our business as Mhlathuze Water. It can never be the same for the people up north when we've got an institution like ourselves and things are just the same. It can't be that in the early 80s, when people were sent for wrong things, they were sent north because everything is bad there. Even now, people must be sent up north because it's bad. Even poor planning on water availability still persists even nowadays, not under my watch. It cannot happen. We're going to plan. We're going to plan properly. We will force even those that do not want to plan with us, because they must plan for the communities and guarantee availability of supply, because this thing is not about us. It's about the communities we serve. They've got to have water, even if it's not for them, but for the future generations, they've got to have water. That's the context, my dear, around the issue of underground water and the study that we're doing on the reconciliation study as a package. It's not a standalone issue that we're raising. The second issue around the Swaziland contract, this contract exists between the South African government and the Swazi nation. So what we've been asked to do is to deal with issues of O&M, but what we intend to do is to deal with it in a much more different way as Mhlathuze Water, where there is a possibility of revenue generation for Mhlathuze. we are willing to put up a water treatment plant and sell that water treatment plant to Mhlathuze as a revenue stream. The relationship exists between Lesotho and Swaziland and South Africa on water relations. Why can't it exist between us and Swaziland selling potable water? That's what we're exploring. The discussions are underway. Unfortunately, I can't divulge the details beyond that because we are still in discussion with our colleagues on the other side in terms of the possibilities of this revenue stream for us as Mhlathuze Water if we build this treatment plant and sell water to Mhlathuze, as it were, because it's very close to the dam that we're managing, and we do believe that we can do this work and sell amanzi to Eswatini. How much have we recovered of the 300 million? Let me again go back and contextualize this almost 300 million. It's not all the almost 300 million that is lost. I think I've clarified this. Let me explain what does irregular expenditure mean. Irregular expenditure can be, can I have water please? Irregular expenditure can be defined as a transaction that has occurred without following prescribed format in terms of legislation. In this case, the institution may not have followed PFMA requirements or its own internal policies in sourcing goods and services. It doesn't mean a check was signed and the money disappeared. It doesn't mean that. I hope I'm clearing this. Now, what does this mean? It means sometimes if the tender was supposed to be advertised for 21 days, the organization did not advertise the tender for 21 days, it advertised the tender for 19 days. Maybe because the law says don't count Saturday, Sunday, they counted it erroneously, and it did not meet the requirements of 21 days in terms of the audit scrutiny. Then it was shy of 21 days, therefore it meant it was irregular, a transaction. But it didn't mean that the tendering process did not happen. Tendering happened, a proper institution was hired, and work was done. But if you then follow the paper trail, was it advertised for 21 days? No, it was not, because it was shy of 21 days by 2 days. However, everything else ticks the boxes. Work was done, goods were delivered, project was completed, and people are already deriving benefits out of what was done. So there is nothing to recover out of the expenditure that was incurred in the transaction out of that particular transaction. So you've got transactions of that nature where it's a cosmetic non-compliance as an irregular transaction, but goods and services were delivered. The only area of concern that should be raising eyebrows with the irregular expenditure is the one that meets the threshold of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, where you cannot touch, feel the goods and services, but money was spent. That's what constitutes anyone's concern. And in this case, we are talking classically of transactions below 8 million of this almost 300 million irregular expenditure. How much have we recovered of that? Nothing to date. What are we doing about it? The matters are before the court, and unfortunately I can't divulge beyond that because you would want me to give you the names of these companies that we've taken to court. The matters are before the court as we speak. We've reported to the authorities. Others are being investigated by the SIU. The officials who were involved, yes, they were consequence managed. As painful as it is, others had to be dismissed, unfortunately. Others, they've taken us to the labor court. Some of those matters are before the court because they are challenging the dismissal. I'm standing the ground. I will still win in the labor court. It was the right thing to do. So the issues are falling in that category. We are really not going to bow down. Where things have not gone right, we can't back off. We will stand because we've got to defend the public purse. It can't happen the other way around. So that's where we are with the issue of the recovery of those money. So in some cases, what then we are doing, because these transactions were irregular, after having gone through the whole investigation, reporting to SAPS, the Hawks, going to court, you then need to still write to Treasury to ask them now to regularize the irregular transactions so that you are able to go back to your balance sheet and reduce your irregular expenditure register. That's the process that we must follow. And again, it's not an event, it's a process that we must follow. Mr. Gina say, let me deal with your questions in one theme. Ingwavuma, Ingome. Unfortunately, I would like you to follow developments in the next 2 to 3 months. There's revolution that is coming on how we would like water to be addressed in the province. We are already putting up a position paper that we want to send to the provincial government on how water issues must be addressed in the province. I think at some stage we now need to be stopping all this talking about whose function is it, who is not doing what, and all that. I think people are tired of this talk. People now want water. The view that we hold is simple. Our constitutional responsibility currently is that we must take water from source, meaning the river or the lake. We must put it in our bulk pipeline. We must put it into our treatment works, and we must pump it to the pipes of the municipalities, and we leave it there. That's our responsibility constitutionally, and it ends there. So your questions are misplaced. So if you ask me, is there water in the pipes that is supposed to go to municipalities that we are contracted with? My answer is yes. Those who are contracted with, the answer is yes. Is it reaching the households in terms of reticulation? That's not my function. That's a very simple and a direct answer. And I'm answering it this way so that you can comprehend where our role starts and where our role ends as a water board currently. Reticulation is a function of a water service authority, not of a water board. We're not responsible for for reticulation. The water that gets out of your tap in your house, it's a municipal function. Mine is bulk from the river, treatment works into their pipe. That's my function. I've contracted with that. And I sell them those volumes to sell to you and everybody else. So that's where it ends. Whether there is water in Ngome, Zululand will answer that. Whether there is water in Ngwavuma, Kanyagote must answer that. Is there water in Jozini Treatment Works plant that we built for over 1.1 billion rands? Yes, there is water there. Is it getting to Ngwavuma? Kanyagote must answer you. Are we capable of answering the question if the responsibility is given to us? We are more than capable of doing it. I've answered you. Alex, the issues around Mhlathuze, relationship issues, it stems from what I was saying to Mr. Kina now. Mhlathuze is not in the business of getting into the turf wars around whose function is it, who needs to be doing what. I want to put this for record. We would want to partner with everyone and anyone beyond political party lines. For those who prioritize putting water in the taps of the communities and need our technical competencies and our depth and our muscle as Mhlathuze Water, we are open for business. If you understand that context, it then means you would not question who is in whose space. You will say, he is in this space to offer a solution because my electorate requires this solution. That's the answer that I will give you. We are not here for competition. We will go for a Persian competition. I'm sure I will send the chairperson to model if we want to go to the competition. We are here to provide a service. And that service is what we are capable to provide with skills and competencies to do so. And we've been tried and tested, and we're still willing to do so. We appreciate the comment. Yes, we'll do as much as we can to be prudent on our fiscal management. We would still want to derive the best of the net profits that we get so that our rural development programs can add value to our communities, and we can continue to do the best we can to support the rural development programs, including the bursary schemes that we're offering to young kids in the areas where we operate to study in engineering, in technical fields, including law, because we also have law services in our industry. We can only do this if you've got good figures in our balance sheet to be able to discharge on some of these services. So that's my story. I think I've covered all your questions. Now let me ask Mashimane to come and deal with issues of public relations. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. There was one from Power FM. Sorry. Lest you think I'm running away from it. Maybe let me put it this way. If you follow the line of questioning from the issue you were raising, it was an issue that was given a date. My colleague from Power FM, it was given a date that it was a transaction of 2015 to February 2016. Now it's an issue that predated us, but it's an issue that is sitting in that irregular expenditure I was talking about. And it's an issue that we are following. And I will leave it at that because you know where the issue is currently without me talking too much about it. I've answered you.
Colleagues, I am not sure if there is a second round of questions, and it seems there is. I see Given raising his hand and Newsroom Africa, as well as Isolezwe Boniswa Mohale. So let's take those questions. We'll start with you, Given, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maphumulo. My first question will maybe be linked to the question asked by my colleague Liz. Regarding this particular study that the Chief Executive has been talking about, maybe are you in a position to maybe give us an idea of where the study is right now, and maybe regarding all those things you have mentioned that they are part of this particular study, regarding the storages, the dams, the underground water explorations, desalinations, and all those things. Do you already have an idea as to what investments would be required, to ensure that these ones are realized and they are fruitful, they do benefit the particular communities that you are referring to. That's maybe that would be the first question, linked to the one asked by my colleague. You had to provide water over this COVID period. The area of Zululand or the north of KZN has challenges, you know. There are challenges that exist when it comes to the water provision. How was it? What lessons have you learned, maybe? Have you picked up? What were the challenges, highlights and lowlights? I'm looking forward to a particular context. Then going forward as well, what projects do you have in the pipeline for the next period? Are you going to build a dam somewhere? Are you going to be, I don't know, drilling a borehole somewhere, things along those lines? And maybe what would it take to achieve that as well? Investments that go along with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. It's Karinda from Newsroom Africa. I just have two sets of questions. The first, obviously, involving Dudumieni. I know you have spoken about this, but going forward, you know, it's alleged that she siphoned millions from the water board. I'd like to know, what is your security systems in place now to prevent that sort of corruption around officials and SEM processes? It's obviously a serious matter where even Mr. X detailed how he was able to launder this money. You did mention it's part of the irregular expenditure. Has any part of that, those funds that were allegedly laundered, been recovered? And is there any criminal cases pending by way of the water board against either your former chairperson, Dudumieni, as well as the officials or companies linked to her? And then the second subject I'd like to touch on is you've got, you know, our weather systems are changing rapidly. We can say that drought may be around the corner. What's the state of dams that the water board is using currently, and any contingency measures in place perhaps for an imminent drought? And I do understand that the water board is responsible for bulk water supply in municipalities for reticulation, but obviously you've got municipalities that are not keeping up their side of this deal. At any stage, would the water board consider intervening with the water service authorities to say, we need to now work together to ensure that water actually reaches taps? I know it's not the responsibility of the water board, but any conversations around there? And are there any municipalities owing monies to Mhlathuze Water at this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Mbuso. I think we have a question from Boniswa.
Yeah, Boniswa from Isolezwe. Sikakubuza ukuthi amanzi akhona njengamanje angakanani azokwazi ukuba kubantu throughout isummer yini, and imuphi umyalezo eninawo ukuthi abantu basebenzise kahle amanzi. Ilo eshowe kuke kwaba neyinkinga abantu bebhidliza infrastructure yenu. Iziphi inhlelo eninazo mhlawumbe uqinisekisa ukuthi lezo zinto azenzeki? And indaba yamanzi asolwandle kade sasikhuluma, mhlawumbe zithini inhlelo zenu zikusenqalile yini, ngoba it's not the first time sizwa nge-desalination. Bese sicela ukubuza ukuthi bunjani ubudlelwano phakathi kwenu nomngeni water.
Thank you very much. Let's take more questions if there are any, because I don't anticipate we'll have a third round. So should there be any questions of clarity, I'd rather we just took them now. Going once, thrice gone. See.
Thanks, colleagues, for this round of questions. Maybe Boniswa, cha ubudlelwane nomngeni bukhona. Dadewethu ngimbona uBoniswa manje. Oh. Cha bukhona ubudlelwane Boniswa. Abukaze bungabikho. Angithi ingane ka auntie le umngeni. Manje asikwazi ukuthi singabi nabo ubudlelwane ngoba mabehlabile siyabizana. Makushisa impepho nje funeke sibe khona nathi. So sinabo ubudlelwane bukahle futhi abunankinga nje nakancane. Angiboni ukuthi ikhona into engasiphazamisa futhi kulobu budlelwane. Usihlalo wami nosihlalo wasemngeni bayakhulumisana bukhona ubudlelwane umngeni nje siwenzela umsebenzi siyawucela usenzele umsebenzi ukutesta some of the things esingakwazi ukuyitesta sinobudlelwane nabo through office likababunhloro lapha kwa scientific services. So ayikho ingqinamba ngobudlelwane phakathi kwethu nomngeni water at all. So ingane nje zika anti wethu sidla ndawonye ayikho nhlobo inkinga. Ayikho ingqalasizinda yethu njengomhlathuze elimalile ngenkathi kunodlambedlu neyiteleka. Cha ayikho bandla. Ngizokuyekela lokhu kubantu mhlambe abangase kube mhlambe balinyalelwe ingqalasizinda ukuthi bangaphawula kangconywana kukona, kodwa angigqugquzela ukuthi akuyona into enhle nokho, kodwa ukuthi uma ngabe umphakathi khona la ungenelisekile khona bese uveza ilaka lwawo ngokuthi ulimaza ingqalasizinda eyakhiwe uhulumeni njengoba isimo sethu seyimali sisibi kangaka, kubi kona ngoba ayikho imali yokuthi kuphinde kulungiswe lenqalasizinda limalayo. Ngiyawuncenca ke mina umphakathi ukuthi uzame ukuthi ugweme lokho, nanoma ngoba yini eyenzakalayo asizame ukuthi amaphaphu siwabeke phansi kube khona ukukhulumisana ukuze siyithole isombululo nanoma yiphi ingxaki ebakhona ukuze singalimazi impahla esizoyidinga uma siphinda sifuna ukuthi silekeleleke emsebenzini wokuletha intuthuko emphakathini. Yilokhu nje engokuncenca mina boniswa emphakathini wonke jikelele. Namhla befikelwa yinto yokuthi bafisa ukusondela kwethu impahla, bakhumbule nje ukuthi ioffice lami livulelekile ukuthi asikhulumisane ukuze ingabikho into yokuthi kulimale impahla kungakhulunyiwe nanoma yiphi ingqinamba ekhona isonjululwe ilungiswe. Umyalezo esinawo ke munye ukuthi sicela amanzi siwasebenzise ngokuwonga ngoba iconsi neconsi libalulekile. Uma siwasebenzisa amanzi ngokungawongi ikusasa lethu lizoba mfiliba ngoba ngaphandle kwamanzi alikho ikusasa. Asiwongeni ke amanzi siwaphathise okwezikhali zamantungwa ngoba ayikho enye indlela ongakwazi ukubuyisela ngalo iconsi elilahlekile. Yebo amanzi enele bonisa ukuthi i-festive season sizokwazi ukuthi sifike kuyona sidlule. Mhlawumbe ubuzela ukuthi mawugoduka nawe emakhaya uzokwazi ukuthi ube namanzi. Cha azoba khona amanzi enele. Ngifuna ukubuyela ke kuloko bengikusho ukuthi sizokwazi thina ukwaphampa amanzi anele ukuthi afinyelele emphakathini. I-level yeJozini Dam i-40%. Sikhuluma nje iHude Throw i-51% sikhuluma nje. Ama lakes wonke ke esiwasebenzisayo ngase Richards Bay agcwele awu 100% nje full capacity. So ayikho inkinga dadewethu. Amanzi nje akhona sizokwazi ukuthi i-festive season sifinyelele kuyona size sidlule ngoba inhlelo zethu ukuthi amanzi siwasebenzise sakuwonga. Now let me come back to the questions around the former chair of the board. I'm not sure how to answer this question beyond what I've submitted earlier. The report that we have tabled before you seems to suggest in our turning the corner that we have strengthened our internal control mechanisms. So you cannot do as you please and have access into the public purse, whether by means of forgery or fluking what is not meant to be because we've strengthened our internal controls. So that's it. We've strengthened them. And strengthening them could mean many things. That from requisitioning, we've segregated responsibilities and accountability. And those controls have got test measures, even in our IT system, to be able to help us detect where things could be going wrong. And you are not likely to see the repetition of such. If there was, we could have reported it today. And what we presented to you today is a clean slate that suggests that there is no such repetition of issues as you could have had them in the past. Beyond it, I am not quite too sure how one could be convincing around the strengthened internal controls in the institution. You'd remember what Justice Zondo was saying about this matter, that the less said about it, the better, because he made a ruling on the matter. Now, I don't want to stand here and start opening up and discussing this matter in detail, because this question is prompting me to get to details about this matter, and I'm not prepared to do that, because there's a ruling on the matter, and this ruling on the matter has everything to do with the testimony that was led last week. It has everything to do with the testimony that was led earlier this year, and everything else that follows in as far as those two testimonies and what are the legal consequences that are following through in as far as those two led testimonies. And as it stands, I would sum it up, it's a matter that is sub judice. I can't get into detail beyond it. But I can tell you this, the law will take its course. And I will leave it at that for now. And can I please not get into detail? I do not want to get a letter when I get to my office from Chief Justice to say, but this matter, you know, should not be discussed. I'm sure you understand. I'm sure you understand. If you don't, please do. Then there's an issue around the colleague that was asking, sorry, I didn't get the names. The questions were coming so fast and furious this time around. The dam levels was asked also by my colleague that I've responded to. 40 and 60, 51% respectively. And we do have contingency plans in place. For instance, the Mhlathuze Dam, we are operating a transfer scheme to augment the capacity of the dam when it decreases. We're pumping water from Utugela River all the way, and it pumps up Mkhalazi Madungela for about 42 kilometers up, and it gravitates for about another 42 kilometers into the dam and into our catchment system. So there is a compensating control that dam must always be kept with water as we are running that transfer system. So we're not in any way sitting and not doing anything to ensure that there's a sustained availability of supply in as far as water. In the Richards Bay area, at least, we're not only operating from the Mhlathuze. There are also some lakes that we alternate and use them in harsh conditions. We also have access to those, but you know, environmentalists will be very cautious about the abstraction levels on the lakes, that we must always keep them not below 60%, because we must always protect the environment and the species that live in those lakes. So we always do this alternative extraction methods in that regard. Regarding some of the water service authorities, who do not have capacity to deal with reticulation? Is there a conversation that is ensuing between Mhlathuze Water and them? Yes, there is. But let me give you just a different scenario here. Water is a revenue stream for the municipalities. Just keep that in mind. Water is a revenue stream for municipalities. So others would really come to discuss help soberly. Others would be very cautious because they fear an income loss. Water is a revenue stream for municipalities. The fact that you are paying your water bill is a revenue stream. But in what I was saying, watch out in the next few months, it's going to give relief to municipalities if they concentrate in reticulation and they still keep their revenue and forego the bulk, which is a burden to them. Because bulk is taking a lot of their money, and they don't have enough money in their RBIG and WISIG to deal with bulk. Reservoirs, wastewater plants takes a lot of money from the municipalities, and they are not deriving any income from the bulk because they must provide that bulk to deal with reticulation. And bulk for us is a revenue source, if you get the twist in the model. So if we deal with bulk and provide them with bulk water for their reticulation and still get their revenue, the interest for us to deal with bulk is greater because 1 cent for us is an income and no cent for them is a burden. Do you follow? Well, I will explain over tea, you will get it. You see, and any cent I make on bulk is no cent for municipalities because that bulk is not giving them any money except that it just provides them an opportunity to pump water, yet I could do it for free for them. And they can still get that water at no cost for the bulk, but they get water. So the sooner bulk is moved and reticulation remains, the sooner we're dealing with issues of water provision faster. Because all the concentration and the budget will just simply go to reticulation, and the water boards must concentrate on bulk from source to bulk purification, wastewater purification, and distribution goes to municipalities. I know you'll have a follow-up question. What happens if there's growth in the communities? There's this animal called an IDP, isn't it? Then they simply say in the next 2 to 3 years, there are housing units coming into this area. We want the sewerage works to be upgraded. It's my planning issues with my technical services to go and upgrade the sewerage plant. I get it ready. I simply say, off-take agreement, we've increased it by another 20 megalitres, accommodating your new housing units and developments that are coming, then you can tap in, we are ready. They've spent no cent, new housing, they can connect, charge their people, I still charge them for bulk, I get my money, they get their money, it's a win-win. They've taken no money from their pocket, no money from their fiscus, it's a win-win situation. So at some stage, we just need to be able to shift our thought processes and relieve of the fiscus some of the things that we've always been burdening the fiscus about, but it requires us to understand the end game. But it's an issue that I'm saying we've got a position paper that we want to take to the provincial government to have a robust discussion around relieving some of these services from the municipalities so that we can be effective in delivering some of these services, as it were. The issue around future projects that we're doing as Mhlathuze, there's a lot of projects that we're doing. We have off-take agreements that we've signed with some companies in the IDZ area, which are calling us to increase our production capacity by at least another 60 megs per day. And we're upgrading our treatment facilities. And in the next 5 years, in terms of our business plan, we're going to be spending almost 800 million rands in terms of our business plan on CAPEX, which has to do with a lot of capital infrastructure improvement and expansion that we are going to be putting on the ground. And that has to do with the upgrade in our distribution, so that we're able to meet our contractual responsibilities that we've entered into with our clients, whilst guaranteeing long-term availability of supply to our clients that we have currently. What are the challenges in terms of the COVID and water supply in some areas, Zululand and other areas? Like I said, the issue of reticulation is a Water Service Authority responsibility. So Zululand will be better poised to answer this question on what are the challenges that they experienced in distribution of water during COVID. But all I can guarantee is that from the commitments that we've had with our clients, nothing had shifted. For instance, we do supply water to the city of Mhlathuze. Our offtake agreements with the city were not disrupted during COVID. We continued to distribute the volumes that were required. I wouldn't really be alive to what Zululand was experiencing in terms of their distribution during COVID. It's a general phenomenon that there would always be challenges with water distribution here and there, but they are better positioned to answer this question. But as I said, we're aware that there are certain water projects that we need to be able to complete with DWS in the Zululand area, which were not completed due to budget. Those are already in discussion, and we've already petitioned with the chairperson, DWS, to avail the budget so that we're able to complete these and hand them over to the district so that they can deal with issues of O&M in some of those projects. Regarding the details on the reconciliation study, yes, I think I will ask the colleagues to send you an email on the reconciliation study and what are the projections, as it were. In summary, as I was saying, it's a multi-pronged study looking at the options that we must consider for water availability. Yes, some of those have been projected over multi-years. There are certain things that we're going to be doing in the current financial year. Next year, with detailed feasibility, we're looking at the Mhlathuze Dam as something that we'd want to do in the next 3 to 4 years in the area where we are together with DWS. And we're also looking at strengthening our distribution network so that we can guarantee water availability in the Mtuba-Tuba, St. Lucia area from a bulk point of view, working with Umkhanyakude. And the secondary bulk with Umkhanyakude provided, and again, the discussions with Umkhanyakude get to the level where they request us to deal with the bulk distribution like they did now with Skemelele, dealing with bulk reticulation, which is their function. Because we can't really just simply get into their space. It's a constitutional mandate of the municipality to deal with it. So you've got to understand, as much as you may have a noble intention, once you get into that space, without being invited into that space, you do not want to see a legal battle between the water authorities fighting about whose competence it is. People would not want to even understand why we're in court about that. They just want water. So you rely on IGR structures to be able to resolve some of these challenges and deal with water distribution. So we are really very candid about how we engage with colleagues on the ground, finding one another, finding amicable resolutions, because in the end, we're all about distributing water and finding water to the communities at the pace and the time that the communities are expecting water to be distributed to them. So that's about it in terms of the questions that were raised as follow-up questions, and I would leave it at that, and thank you, colleagues, very much.
Colleagues, thank you very much. I think this brings us to the end of our briefing today. Allow me again to thank you all for your attendance. I think you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be with us, and we appreciate that. As they say, all's well that ends well. I thank my EXCO colleagues for being here today, the Chief Executive, the Board Chairperson, and breakfast is served, at least the hot elements to the left. Thank you very much once again, colleagues.